Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Tide TV This Week. It's brought to you by Renaissance Bank. I'm Chris Stewart alongside my broadcast partner, Maggie Hetzel, and here we are in the midst of baseball, softball going on. Men's and women's basketball have wrapped up. We do have some hoops news to discuss, but gymnastics really getting things going and in a familiar spot.
They are in a familiar spot, heading over to the regional, which we're going to get to how they got there. But first up was the SEC championship for them in New Orleans, Chris.
And a familiar starting spot and finishing spot for them as well.
Yes, it is. The ladies headed to New Orleans for the 2019 SEC championships on Saturday. The Tide was seeded 5th heading into the weekend. Beautiful New Orleans, and we're in the afternoon session, also known as Session 1, and they absolutely dominated, scoring a season best 197-350 to better its nearest competitor in that session by nearly a point. They made some noise in Session 1, which is what they wanted to do without being in Session 2.
Sure.
Started strong on vault and uneven bars and took control on what has been their best event as of recently, balance beam, scoring a season best 49.45, fueled by career best from Lexi Graber, a 9.95, and then a 9.925 from freshman Shalyn Olsen. Bama finished the afternoon on floor exercise with a 49.475, just 0.025 from their season best mark after Session 2. Tide placed 3rd, coming behind LSU and Florida.
Maggie, there were some big scores all around for the Tide on every rotation, but Lexi Graber's 9.95 beam routine was enough to win her the SEC balance beam title, on the way to totaling a career best 39.650 to finish 2nd in the all-around. Shalyn Olsen also a big beam score with a 9.25, and on floor, Maddie Desch got the rotation off to a strong start with a 9.9, matching her season best score. Abby Armbrecht scoring 9.9 in 4th position, and Lexi and Ari Guerra closing things out with matching 9.925s, some of the biggest scores of the season for the Tide.
An incredible meet, Chris. The next up for the ladies was the selection show, which took place on Monday to find out where Alabama would be placed for the NCAA regional round of the NCAA championships. Let's take a look at the ladies' reaction as they found out.
Next, rolling into the competition, welcome Alabama.
As you just saw, the ladies were excited to hear that they are headed to Ann Arbor, Michigan for the regional round of the NCAA championships. This year's postseason format is significantly different from last year, and Alabama will be in the 2 p.m. session of the second round on April 5th as they take on host Michigan, as well as Penn State and Ohio State. The 7 p.m. session of the second round will be made up of defending NCAA champion UCLA, Nebraska, and West Virginia, as well as the winner of round 1, which will feature Illinois and Central Michigan. A little bit confusing, but the top 2 teams from the 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. rounds will then advance to the regional finals, where the top 2 of those 4 teams will advance to the NCAA championships in Fort Worth, Texas. Here's what Coach Dana Duckworth had to say about the selection.
I think the bottom line is you can't take anyone for granted at all. Every team that's vying to move on to round 3 is going to be an awesome team. And so no matter what team is there, no matter where the ranking is, I think we showed that this weekend at the SEC Championship to be the first team to make that afternoon score relevant in the evening. And that was one of our missions. And if that helps the nature of our sport get better and stronger, then that's what we want. And so that's what it gives you perspective, is that you have to continue to get better. You have to continue to show up and do what you need to do, bring in the energy and the effort and the focus.
Softball was on the road this weekend for their first SEC Road Series. Were they able to continue their incredible undefeated start to the season? Stay with us.
Welcome back again, everybody. Alabama softball on the road this weekend for their first SEC Road Series of the season. The ladies headed into the weekend with a 31-0 record, just 4 wins away from tying the NCAA record. Maggie, were they able to continue the streak?
Unfortunately, no. But that 31-0 record
Close.
is still a program record, and there is still plenty of the season left. Before we get to the loss, let's talk about the 2 big SEC wins first, Chris.
They were good ones.
The ladies headed over to College Station for, as you mentioned, Chris, their first SEC Road Series of the season, and the Tide's hot hitting over the last week. It traveled with them into Game 1 of the weekend series, as every one hitter of the Tides in the starting lineup got a hit and scored a run. KB Sides and Kaylee Towd led off of the top of the first with a walk and an infield single, setting up junior Bailey Hemphill for a towering 3-run homer, which you saw right there to give Bama the early lead. Then in the top of the second, the Tide continued the hot bats as Kaylee Towd poked a single over the second baseman's head, scored 2 to stretch the lead to 5-0. And I think we see the pattern of the game here, Chris. The ladies added 1 more in the third, then 2 in the fifth, 5 in the sixth to seal the deal in just 6 innings, taking game 1 13-3.
The series continued on Saturday, and the Tide had another dominating offensive performance. Bama starting things off hot, loaded the bases with 1 out at the top of the first, setting up Mary Schroeder for a 2-run single through the left side, giving the Tide the first lead of the game, and then a walk to Reagan Dykes, loaded the bases again. Unfortunate error from A&M's defense let 2 score for Bama, making it 4-0 after just the first inning. The Tide a big third, adding 6 more, 1 in the fifth. Run rule of the Aggies in 5. The Tide securing the series with the win on Saturday, 11-1.
And Chris, unfortunately, the Tide's 33-win streak came to an end on Sunday against the Aggies. It was a close one as Bama was the first to strike on the board with a Kaylee Towd and Claire Jenkins solo home runs, putting Alabama up early 2-0. Then in the bottom of the third, the Aggies cut the lead in half with an RBI single, making it 2-1. Bama then responded, added 1 more in the fifth, but in the bottom of the sixth, A&M put a pair in scoring position with 2 out, and they were able to bring both home on an infield single, tying the game 3-3. Bama did load the bases in the top of the seventh, but were not able to bring one in. Heading into the bottom of the seventh, the Aggies drew a leadoff walk, and then down to the final out, Peyton McBride dropped a single on the left, bringing in the game winner. Tide drops the first one of the season, 4-3. Here's what Coach Murphy had to say about the weekend.
I thought, the first 2 games, we knocked out the starting pitcher really quick. Sunday, that was the issue. We hit the 2 home runs against her, and give her credit. She settled down. She started making a couple of good pitches. Her changeup was on point. And then we started swinging at pitches out of the zone, which helps the pitcher. But really, that was the only disappointing part of the whole weekend. Was I was hoping that after those 2 home runs in the top of the first, we would continue to kind of put it on her. But she came back and pitched pretty well, and then, she had a complete game victory.
Next, we are heading over to a different diamond on the other side of campus, Chris. We are talking baseball. When we come back, stay with us. Welcome back to Tide TV. Chris, it was quite the packed weekend at the Joe this weekend for the first SEC home series, Bark at the Park Day, and The Office. All your favorites, huh?
I love The Office. I was on cleanup duty at Bark in the Park, so it didn't go as well as I wanted. Aaron Cooper cleaned it up with all the highlights and a recap of the action.
This weekend brought the beginning of home SEC play for Alabama baseball, along with some tough challenges. The Tide welcomed the top 10 ranked Arkansas Razorbacks for a series that featured runaway wins for both teams. Friday would be a tough one for the Tide. Arkansas scored a run in the first before putting up 11 more by the 8th. Alabama answered late, earning 3 runs in the 9th inning, including 1 from John Trousdale, who scored on a wild pitch. The late rally wouldn't be enough, and the Razorbacks took day 1, 12-3. Alabama packed a punch at the park on Saturday. Keith Holcomb's solo home run in the 2nd inning turned the tables in Alabama's favor.
Alabama strikes first.
With the bases loaded, junior Colby Robinson sent a single through the left side for a pair of runs and gave Alabama the 3-0 advantage. The Tide's fiery 6th inning earned them 6 runs. Bama's scoring campaign started when Brett Auerbach's single brought Tyler Gentry home from 3rd. Later in the inning, with the bases loaded, Colby Robinson sent one up the middle, everyone advancing forward, and allowed Reeves to score. The last run of the inning came from Kobe Morris, making the afternoon now a 9-0 contest. Alabama added on 1 more in the 8th, using a sacrifice fly from Gentry to bring in the Tide's 10th run of the day and kept the Hogs off the board. This was Alabama's first shutout of Arkansas since 2013.
They did a good job. They just go play, and I told them that. Y'all doing a good job of that, and that's going to be a big key for us going forward, is having that mentality of just go play.
Arkansas began Sunday's scoring, racking up 4 runs by the 3rd inning. Alabama cut the deficit in the bottom of the 4th. With runners in the corners, John Trousdale's sacrifice fly brought in Gentry and got Bama on the board. At the next at-bat, Reeves stole second and kicked the ball into no man's land to put himself 90 feet away. A wild pitch to Brett Auerbach got him to first base and crossed TJ from third to make it a 4-2 game. Arkansas earned 6 more runs by the 8th inning and sealed the score at 10-2. Bama reached runners in the 5th, 6th, and 7th innings, but just couldn't pull any closer, and Arkansas took the series.
Although not the outcome the team was hoping for, Alabama still has many more opportunities to topple their SEC opponents. Reporting from Sewell Thomas Stadium for Tide TV, I'm Erin Cooper.
Thank you so much, Erin. Now, the Tide had another midweek matchup on the schedule this week. Maggie, it was a big one.
That it was, Chris. The Tide headed down to Montgomery for the annual Max Capital City Classic Tuesday evening. Chris, as you know, everyone refers to this one as the battle for the state. The Tide used a 3-run 8th inning to help secure the 6-3 win over the 12th-ranked Tigers, and the victory marked UA's first win in the neutral site matchup since 2014 and improved the Crimson Tide's overall record to 20-6. Chris, this win is a huge confidence booster for the Tide.
No question about that. Another win over a ranked team. Freshman Drew Williamson making some noise in his first Classic, going 4 for 4, a double, couple of runs scored. He was the MVP. Joe Bro also contributing a multi-hit effort, finishing 2 for 3 with a double, plus a team-high 3 RBIs and a pair of walks. The Tide utilizing a season-high 8 arms on the mound. Jeremy Randolph earning his first win of the season in relief.
Next, we are learning more about softball senior Maris Schroeder. Stay with us. Welcome back. One of the most bittersweet moments for every college athlete comes on senior day. This is special not only for the athlete, but for the parents who helped them get to where they are today. Let's learn a little more about senior softball player Maris Schroeder and her softball journey. It's brought to you by ATI.
Dear Maris.
Maris.
Pretty unique in the fact that you've played for basically 2 organizations your whole life. Probably knew that you loved softball when you were probably 7. Got hit in the face when you were playing in the pitching circle. Blood was everywhere. You went to the dugout, washed your mouth out, and went right back onto the field.
But since you've been here at Alabama, you have been able to help people outside of what you could do at home. You've touched a lot of people's lives. We've seen that. We've heard that.
The 3-1 as Schroeder hits this one way back there. No doubt about it. Maris Schroeder with another big hit for the Crimson Tide this season.
I'm sorry. This is the play that every outfielder wants to make in front of over 3,000 fans.
I've seen you grow from a baby on, but since you've been here at Alabama, I've seen you turn into a stronger, more thoughtful, faithful person.
Thank you, Maris, and roll Tide.
And I just want to finish with that you've always been a special person from the time you were born, and you've affected a lot of people's lives, and I just feel honored to be able to see that and watch you grow and how much you mean to people and how much you care. Love you.
Ripped into left field, going back, it is gone! Grand slam, Bailey Hemphill!
And finishing strong over on balance beam. Look at the front toss to the scale. That's as well as she's done it all season long. Beautifully done.
Deep towards left field, Franklin going back, he jumps, but that's to no avail. A home run for Alabama's Keith Holcomb.
Those were our top plays of the week. Now let's take a look at our Payless Drugs Players of the Week.
Yep, we're going to go, Maggie, with Joe Bro, the senior for Bama baseball. Big weekend offensively. In fact, big season so far. Through 26 games, 29 hits, 18 RBIs. He goes 2 for 4 with a ribby Saturday against the Razorbacks. 2 for 3, 3 RBIs against Auburn on Wednesday, helping the Tide secure the win against the 12th-ranked Tigers. A fun one to watch in center.
Yes, he is, Chris. And then Lexi Graber's my girl this week. I picked Lexi this week for her incredible performance at the SEC Championships. Lexi's 9.95 beam routine was enough to win her SEC balance beam title, and she totaled a career best 39.650 to finish second in the all-around. Again, I remind you, she's only a sophomore, Chris. A lot of gymnastics left for her.
A lot indeed. And right now we take a look at the schedule for the Crimson Tide. What's next? Brought to you by Renaissance Bank. We got swimming and diving heading to the NCAA Championships in Austin Friday through Saturday. Men's tennis is on the road in Athens to take on the Dogs Friday at 4. Women's tennis also at home facing off against Georgia Friday at 5. And baseball heading down to Gainesville to take on the Gators for a 3-game series Friday through Sunday.
Softball's back at home at the Rhodes House, and they welcome in Mississippi State for a 3-game series Friday through Sunday. Game times can be found on RollTide.com. Women's rowing is at home against Creighton and Jacksonville at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, and women's tennis is also at home with a doubleheader on Sunday. They face off against Tennessee at 11 a.m. and Jackson State at 5 p.m.
And to round out the week, some midweek baseball and softball. Baseball at home at the Joe Tuesday, taking on Troy at 6. Softball welcomes in UAB at 6 on Wednesday. And we've got a new men's basketball coach at the University of Alabama. Maggie will be telling everybody about him next week.
We will have all that for you next week. Thanks for watching another episode of Tide TV this week.
See you, everybody.